Now, your senior year, you was voted to the Indiana All-Star game. What experience did you have with that?
That was a great experience. It was a lot different then than it is now. Now it's a 1 week process. Back then it was a 2 week process. You come down on a Sunday, they put you up in a hotel, they get you paired up, with your teammates. You go through an entire week of practice, and then we played one game down in Kentucky. Uh, then had another week of practice and came back and played a game in Indiana, in Indianapolis, at the old Market Square Arena, where it was home to the Pacers. But all during the week, we had appearances at children's hospitals, different zoos, the Ronald McDonald House, and everything. So they really made it a big time experience. Not only were you there to play basketball, but it gave you a chance to look at people that were a lot less fortunate than you were. And I guess the goal was to teach you, that none's promised, and you should really cherish what you have and always be ready to give back.
Now, before we get to your recruitment process, Coach Yagowski made a statement to me in this interview that you was the best wide receiver that he ever coached, and that if you would have dedicated yourself to football, you would possibly been an NFL pro wide receiver. Give us a little brief history on your football career at Central.
Well, I think Coach E says that because at the time, I'm 6'3", 6'3", 6'4", about 190 pounds. You look at the NFL now, that's a prototype receiver. We're talking about 20 years ago. And high school, to be it. But basketball was really my first love. But of the three sports I played in high school, basketball was probably number 3. If I had to rank them, and other people have ranked them, hindsight's always 20/20. My best sport was baseball. Football would have been number 2, and basketball number 3, actually.
Wow. Give us a little history in your baseball career.
Started playing baseball 7, 8 years old with Little League. I think I still hold the all-time home run record at which is now Civic Little League. It was Club Cuyahoga Little League then. Hit about 25, 30 home runs as a 12-year-old there. Played 4 years of varsity baseball in high school. Didn't play my first couple years in college, but I ended up playing again when I was in college.
Okay. Now it's time for recruiting. Indiana All-Star, big-time name in the AAU, big-time name in the state of Indiana. What schools was recruiting you, and what school did you narrow down to before you picked Indiana State?
Well, my recruiting process was crazy. From about my freshman year, I started being recruited by Purdue, and about the end of my freshman, mid-sophomore year, I had my mind made up that I wanted to go to Purdue. Then North Carolina State comes into the picture. I fell in love with North Carolina State. Purdue stops recruiting me. North Carolina State gets put on probation. So now we're coming up on my end of my junior year and senior year, so it's really a free-for-all at that time. Texas Tech was in the picture, Kansas State, and a few other schools. At one point I was going to go to Texas Tech. Their coaching staff gets fired. I was going to go to Kansas State. They didn't have a scholarship at the time. End up settling on Indiana State, which was, in hindsight, which was, I know now was a bad decision, but I was thinking at the time, you can be a big fish in a big pond and get lost. At the time, I was thinking being a big fish in a smaller pond and be able to excel right away.
Gotcha. So give us a little experience on your college career at Indiana State.
There 2 years. Played for a guy that was a real no-nonsense guy. For example, Bobby Knight was one of his assistant coaches. So a lot of Bobby Knight's antics he got from this guy, Tate Locke. I have a decent freshman season. End up with a bad, severe ankle injury. Missed a few games. Have a good sophomore season. I think I had a season high of 18 or 19 points with 7 or 8 rebounds in the Missouri Valley tournament. And then at that point, Coach and I weren't really seeing eye to eye. And after that season, I ended up transferring down to New Mexico.
So now you transferred to New Mexico State.
Right.
Um, what made you go to Mexico State from Indiana State? Was there any other school that you was kind of looking at, or
Well, I was originally going to transfer to Ole Miss because the guy at the time, the head coach at Ole Miss, was a guy named Rob Evans who actually recruited me at Texas Tech and was assistant coach with Eddie Sutton at Oklahoma State, and he had just recently got me a head coach job at Ole Miss, but didn't have a scholarship for me. So it was either sit out and go to Ole Miss the next year or go to New Mexico State right then and there. And my mother wouldn't allow me to sit out. So I ended up down at New Mexico State. Great time down there, great basketball, great atmosphere, great people. Just an overall great experience. With the mountains and everything down there. How many kids from East Chicago get a chance to experience, what it's like to be up in the mountains, what it's like to go across the border into Mexico. Where I was actually in between Mexico and El Paso, Texas.
Wow.
So it was a great experience.
Now, did you have any pro opportunities, pro thoughts, pro goals?
I actually went overseas in Australia and played for a year and a half. Ended up with another knee injury, and that pretty much ended that career. Got back to Chicago around 97, 98. Worked with at-risk kids at Field Elementary School. Then got on the police department, and that's what I'm doing to this day.